Hey guys, I'm Paul from Upstart, and thank you so much for listening. As a reminder, we are an outsourced finance and accounting function for startups and high-growth businesses. We handle all of your bookkeeping, taxes, fractional CFO work, billing and operations, with the goal of keeping you efficient, scalable, and saving you time so your founders can focus on what they do best. If you want to learn more about what we do and you're having problems with your own finance and accounting function, just reach out to us at www.opstart.co or find me on LinkedIn, Paul Anthony. Happy to chat. All right, welcome to the studio, Alex Kruszewski.
Thanks for having me.
Founder and CEO of Abacus.
That's right.
And very excited to have you in and learn a little bit more about the business and your story here.
No, thanks for having me. This is great.
Yeah. So first of all, this is homecoming from you. You've spent some time here in South Bend before and currently live in Chicago. Walk us through a little bit of your background leading up to the decision to found Abacus.
Yeah. So, I mean, we could dive into a million stories along the roadmap, but I'll give the short version. Career after Notre Dame started kind of as you'd expect, maybe for a finance major at Notre Dame, but I went investment banking, private equity. I was at a few firms, pretty run of the mill, Evercore, Madison Dearborn Partners, BDT. Things got really bizarre after that. So I actually left and went to a small business outside of Chicago. It was when my first son was born. So it was kind of taking a step off the, aggressive finance path. Went into operations of like a facility for a pharmaceutical business. So totally different. Was there for like 30 days and then we jumped into a sale process. So we hired Centerview, big investment bank, ran a sale process, ended up selling that business to Eli Lilly for massive outcome, unicorn status, which was really cool.
You didn't know that the sale process was going to be a thing when you joined?
No, actually, it was kind of funny. We actually, my job was supposed to be operations based. It was supposed to be like filling of contracts for a facility we had just created and we're getting up and running. So I was already kind of working with that family a little bit. So I knew what they were working on. But yeah, then the process kind of hit us as opposed to the other way around.
Sure.
So after we sold that facility, I kind of thought I worked my way out of a job a little bit. Thought I was, out. Don't know what I was going to do after that. And anyway, the brothers, obviously, that owned the business, they had a great outcome for themselves, life-changing, great guys. They basically asked me to set up a family office for them. So I spent kind of the next 2 years it's called Goldfinch Capital Partners in Chicago, up and running. So we got that up and running over 2 years, built out a team. I got to serve as the CIO there, running all the investments and such, which is crazy. They trusted. I was 27 at the time when they trusted me with it. So props to them. That's when the career kind of shifted a whole lot. It was like, okay, now I'm managing a lot of money and making a lot of investments. One of the hardest things, and we'll dive into this, but is actually tracking that amount of assets is an absurd problem. It's like you have all the money, you have like so much secrecy, you have really intelligent people around the table, and there's just massive amounts of dysfunction related to actually tracking it and keeping it up to date and trying to answer the very simple question to them of like, what are we worth right now?
Yeah.
Was almost impossible. And so that was where the genesis of the idea for Abacus kind of really came from.
Wow. So you stood up a family office.
Yeah.
A very unexpected job. First of all, Goldfinch, the name. How'd you guys come up with that?
One of the three brothers is a bird watcher. He loves it.
Really?
Yeah. But what's funny about it actually is my mom, she's back in Pennsylvania, small town in Pennsylvania, and she picked up as like a retirement hobby photography. Yeah. And when we were starting Goldfinch, I was told from one of the brothers, hey, this is the name. We had a bunch of different names. And then she had just taken a picture on Presque Isle in Erie of a goldfinch that like she saw. It was either in her backyard or Presque Isle, I can't remember, but she had sent it in like our family group chat. I was like, this is awesome. I got to get this like in my office, get it framed. Yeah. So the name was kind of, but then we named everything. We were a fun family office. We named like everything after like a bird or a snake or something kind of fun like that.
Sure.
So all of our entity names were really bizarre and fun. Yeah.
So you guys, I mean, the people you're working for, right? They're fresh with a ton of liquidity. And to your point, now all of a sudden that goes from all that money in one entity to in a lot of different vehicles. Yeah. I think most people would probably think about the strategic challenge of allocating, right? But you're talking about a different side, which is post allocations, actually tracking where it all is, how it's performing, what fees and taxes and whatnot might come with it. That proved to be a really interesting challenge for you.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Everybody talks about the allocate. It's like what you read about in textbooks or in college when you're a finance major, you're like all excited about the allocation. You're going to go be an investor. You're going to be the next Buffett or Howard Marks or whoever you read, right? That part there's a lot of help out there. Like we RFP'd 30 something investment advisors. We had a Goldman guy and a JP Morgan guy. They were excellent. They were so good. They made my job easy. We had a ton of private equity funds coming to us and venture capital funds coming to us. Like we had so much opportunity, to your point, because there's capital on the table, so people want to talk to you.
Sure.
So more of that job it is hard, but it's the vetting and figuring out like who you can trust across the table. And the principals wanted to be super involved with that process. And that's why, frankly, I'm able to go do what I'm doing now, is because they are so intelligent and so good at that. The actual tracking, nobody talks about because nobody wants to do it. It's not the fun stuff that you read about in an investment, textbook or in Howard Marks. Like I don't remember the chapter of The Most Important Thing where he talks about like how you run Excel. I don't think it's in there. So that big problem, massive issue in the industry. There's some solutions out there and like they're good companies and everything, but what they are is we were talking about this obviously earlier when it was just the two of us at coffee, but they're softwares. Like they're just softwares and they don't get into the labor element at all. So when I was at Goldfinch, we had a legacy software we were using. We were paying over $100,000 a year for, just to track. That just had the modules to put stuff into, and I had 2 accountants that we were paying, real salaries to. So we had $250,000 of expenses just so I could answer a very simple question of like, what are you worth? And it was only right insofar as the labor was there. Right. Like if somebody was off on vacation or hungover or
like
whatever,
garbage
like
in, garbage out.
Yeah, it's garbage in, garbage. You just lose it. Like you have no idea what you're worth. And it's not just like a vanity measure either. Like, oh, what are you worth? There's so many implications of that. Like, is my allocation correct? Am I thinking about taxes appropriately for next year? Am I making my estimates, like my payments quarterly at the right time? There's so much you can do from there that it's just the central point that you need to get right. And frankly, in the family office scene, it was a massive headache. So that's really why at Abacus, we combined it. And that's what we're really trying to do is be a wholesale solution, software and the service. But we think about that a little bit differently with what we call SPaaS, which we could dive into that a whole bunch.
I'm very excited to dive into that. Yeah. But tell me a little bit. So when did you officially decide to start Abacus?
Yeah, so there's sort of an interesting founding story to Abacus, and it comes back to these massive visions of, I'd say, 3 people that had slightly different visions, and we kind of jammed them all together and made like an incredible, probably 10x the size vision with what we're doing now. But it was like October that it was official for me, where I kind of hopped and came fully into the seat and started running things.
So you leave Goldfinch at that time.
Yep.
You're launching a new tech business with some service components to it. Did you guys raise some money?
We're basically all self-funded. So the way that we think about our cap table is, fortunately, the people around the table and have the means that we've been able to get this far. Now, most people hear that about the startup and they're like, okay, you're bootstrapped, you're eating ramen noodles, like the old adage is. Frankly, you can't do that in finance and technology, right? Like finance and technology are 2 of the most competitive industries out there.
Sure. Both
are expensive to hire technology. You go mix them in together. It's like, this is not a cheap endeavor. Yeah. Not to mention the tech. So what's nice about it is actually the tech we started working on back in October, we kind of brought in, that was actually being built for years in the background. And so the first sort of like co-founder, he was the one who really brought that to the table. Myself, I came in, I had like the experience at the family office, experience of knowing what we call white glove services, which is the servicing element. And then our CTO who came on and joined, he's the one who expanded kind of what we're doing with databases and such, to make this kind of tripartite, really cool vision. So alongside all that, we've been able to not take any external capital to date.
That's great. And, are you building essentially with Goldfinch in mind? Like people always say you build a solution for one person that you're thinking of or whatever, that's your ICP. But is Goldfinch the type of firm that you are trying to sell to now,
really
the family office?
So Goldfinch is basically a multi-family office with, a couple different principals and such. I'd say we stayed in stealth mode with Abacus. We're still kind of in stealth mode, to be honest. I've been a little forced out of stealth mode, but I guess since you're on a podcast, you're no longer in stealth mode. But
we're a pretty stealthy podcast.
That's all right. Yeah. But we were in stealth mode for a while intentionally because we were designing with so many different archetypes in mind. And so we've had over a dozen like kind of stealth design partners that we've worked with. And that's everything from multifamily offices that look like a Goldfinch, single family offices, which are just like one guy sold his business, did well, down to 5, 10, 15 millionaires, where actually like the solution can go that way as well. But then all the way
without
back,
a family office structure in place.
Yeah,
just
without a
someone
structure
on
in
their
place.
own wants to track this stuff a little bit better.
Right. Yeah. If you think about like the way that family offices are controlled or managed, the captive employees are, really tracking like public equity, private equity, venture capital, real estate, debt, and the documents associated with all those things. And that's like effectively now private credit, I guess, kind of slips in there a little bit, but that's really what you're sort of controlling. Those assets at the lower, mass affluent net worth didn't historically get invested in as much. And in part, like it was hard to track those because the software is super expensive. But not only is the software expensive, you'd have to have labor to do it. And folks who have kind of done quite well, they don't want to be jamming in the numbers either. But now with what we've created, we can actually go service those folks. And what's really cool is like with 401ks opening up to alternative investments and things of that nature, you actually see more of the mass affluent, ultra high net worth scene investing in alternatives, investing a lot in real estate. That's always kind of been a thing, like investing in venture capital. And then we actually built all this as well for sort of the institutional scene. So we had some design partners we built for RIAs, investment advisors, private wealth managers, endowments, things of that nature. So we sort of have three distinct, which again, bizarre for a startup, three distinct ICPs that we've attacked all of them at once, which was why we needed to be stealthy for so long to harden that.
Sure. But you've been running those design partnerships now for a while and kind of getting feedback on where it seems to be adding value and how the solution looks for each of those audiences.
Yeah, that's right. So I'd say we're hardened across all the use cases. The product's completely done. We've actually iterated a couple versions of the product out now. And one thing that is interesting about how we're built is the product is done, designed, in place. But the way we're built is not typical for software. Most software companies, you have a pretty user interface and you have a database that reflects that front end user interface. What we did, and this is the big addition of Brock, our CTO, is our database is a expansive database, which a software engineer would tell you, like, this is compute intensive. I don't know why you're doing this. This seems like, very illogical. It's not the most efficient path. A finance guy would tell you that every single time they have to go build a model, like the model changes. Right. Like they have to go like add a couple columns or rows. It messes the whole thing up and everything roughs out. Yeah. So our database reflects that theory, right? So our database actually expands and grows, or is modular, and our front end expands to meet it, which makes us a lot different than most softwares out there, where we actually don't even think of ourselves as like a software. We think that we're like an organized data layer that sits one level above the database. We're not really a database either.
Interesting.
We're sort of like a new category, we'd say.
So describe the product a little bit more then. Give me the full breakdown.
Yeah. So the simplest way you can explain an abacus is effectively, you think of like a key. We describe building an abacus for our clients as building a financial digital key. So you are porting into a key all of your public equities, private equities, venture capital, real estate, documents, debt, maybe some private credit, like I said earlier, like all into this key, and it all is contained within that key. And now you can kind of unlock or permission that key sort of anywhere. So you want to reveal a portion of your wealth to an advisor who could see part of the balance sheet. Great, revealed. You want to prep your tax filing. Great. Okay, we can go do that. And then your CPA can sign off on it. So we've built this whole ecosystem around this key that every time we build another key, we're really building the world's organized financial data layer, which is an entire data layer that sits on top of your database companies where all the data just ports, where we can actually construct it into something that's helpful and useful for you, whether you're an individual, family, or an institution. And that key becomes kind of the critical piece of it all, because that key, as long as it's always updated, as long as it's always correct, which that's the really hard part, like nobody tries to do.
Sure.
As long as it's correct all the time, it's like infinitely usable. Permission it out to Claude, and you can do a bunch of projections, analysis, et cetera. You can rip your documents out from it, et cetera. The hard part is actually getting it always continuously correct. And that's our white glove services team, which we have internally, which are real ex-investment bankers. People think we're crazy as a tech company for doing this, but like we employ ex-investment bankers, ex-private equity professionals, ex-family office accountants. They actually work inside of Abacus, keeping this completely updated. And there's obviously an AI component and layer, which we could dive into that sits with that key. But the result is for you, like you have this key that is perfect information about your finances, always correct at every given moment. And then you can start doing things from it.
Huh. Yeah. So that gets into the service presented as software, right? Which I'm excited to dive in. There's obviously a lot of talk right now about the flip side of this being true, right? Like you present as a service, but really you're a software layer, and then everybody's funding some version of that, including in the industry where I work.
Yep.
But you guys are taking the opposite approach, which is to say, essentially, your end customers do want software. They just want software that is always up to date, that is customizable to their needs, that is reliable without them having to do all the work to maintain it, to solve the garbage in, garbage out problem, essentially. Right. So tell me about the insight that led you to take that approach, and then how the business model actually works underneath the hood.
Sure. So basically earlier this year, so SaaS has obviously dominated like all these industries for the last couple of decades, like, Thoma Bravo and Vista and Silver Lake and all these firms in the private equity space, and then down into the venture capital space, investing a ton in SaaS across all verticals and domains. And that's true in wealth tech too, right? There's plenty of SaaS solutions out there, especially on the retail side, not as much on the alternative side. But Sequoia wrote earlier this year that I think, you're sort of referencing this kind of shift that the venture capitalists have had. They said like the transition now is from SaaS, like SaaS, to SAS. I don't know if you pronounce that SaaS still, but instead of software as a service, it's service as a software.
Yeah.
They said the next $1 trillion company will come masquerading as a services business, but they'll actually be a product business. So we do use some of that language internally. Like what we say is like we've productized the service, is the line that we say. We actually spoke on this last week at Morningstar's conference in Chicago, where we said like, the transition from SaaS to SaaS is interesting for a lot of reasons. In a lot of industries, I think that'll work. And this theory is, the AI agents are getting so good that they can run around and they can just do stuff for you. I think that's pretty accurate, but the way that people actually feel about that is kind of terrified in finance because they don't have their audit log. Like they don't have like the IRS comes knocking and they need to answer questions. They don't have, they hop on with a client and there's like a set of 100 fields. Like you and I were talking earlier, like about kids, right? Like I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. Like if I'm distracted, if I'm like trying to work and like there's, I'm downstairs and there's stuff going on everywhere, like I will get completely distracted by Moosey eating giraffe over here, like by the 3-year-old. Like I'm not going to be able to focus in. And I think about software the same way. Like nobody actually dislikes the front end user interface. They dislike that they have to fight with it.
Yeah.
Like they dislike filling it in.
They dislike that it pops up and the data doesn't look right.
Right.
And then they need to peel back several layers.
Exactly. My dad, when I went into investment banking, he was like, this is so cool. My son's off in big city doing investment banking, right? It's like kind of cute. Like I remember he bought the Evercore stock at the time. I think he still holds it to this day. I'm like, yeah, hold on to that.
That's awesome.
But like he was all excited, and it's kind of funny, like thinking about it. Like I'm sitting in these big towers and these, big cities, and I'm jamming away numbers in Excel. And I loved Evercore. Like Evercore was awesome. I learned a ton there. Did a ton of really interesting work. What I wanted to do was I wanted to be on M&A calls and, suggesting acquisitions and things of that nature. So much of your time, the reason people work 80, 90, 100 hours is they're inputting data, in that case into Excel, but a lot of the time into software. Right? Nobody likes that part. But people do actually like the software existing as like a central repository. So what AI agents and domain experts allow us at Abacus to do is SPaaS, right? Service presented as a software. You still get the presentation of the software to you, but you don't have to fill it out at all. And that's basically the scandalous claim we make as a company, right? Is you build yourself an Abacus, you build yourself a digital financial digital key. You no longer have to fill out any of your wealth tech software. You're an RIA that uses an incumbent solution. We have clients who use other incumbent solutions, and they hire us to build them an Abacus because that can populate their entire system. And then they get their time back.
So how does that work with regard to the alternatives? Because that's the hardest part of this data to get in. And my very limited experience in the space is like, if you haven't received the K1, if you haven't received the quarterly update from the fund, whatever that document is, right? You do have to go chase that down to get the right information in. So how can you guys help to keep that refreshed without being totally human based and,
there's a big move for like companies to build APIs directly to like all these different portals that exist out there. That's like a good idea, and I think it's possible. The reality of alternatives is that they're not standardized in any way, shape, or form. I mean, some of the documents are like K1s, and that when you look at a K1, you're looking for return of capital or actual profit. Like there's some things you're looking for. But to your point, getting the actual documents, it sort of looks different for almost every client, which is where the domain expertise actually has to come in. Like, how do you actually handle getting that document? Is it that I need access to some bespoke portal I've never been in? Or is it that I need to remember to ping a controller every X amount of days or something like that? There's always going to be, and it's actually like a a positive, I think, that humans have some of those interactions. Like
Sure.
that, I think, is where our white glove services team really excels. Is they're very good at client service. They've all worked in high finance before. They know exactly how to speak with the people on the other side of the table because they were there and they're doing that job. Once you get the documents, that's where we've started to agentify things quite a bit. And so you don't actually need to build any more API pipes to everything. Like it doesn't actually have to be that your endpoint and our endpoint talk to each other perfectly. In fact, like as long as you expose the data in some way, shape, or form to me, whether that's an unstructured document that we can structure, it's a web interface that we can look at, it's read-only access or view-only access as if you're a bookkeeper, right?
Sure.
Like as long as you expose that endpoint, AI is now such that along with some human domain expertise, we can populate the database, or we can come close to populating the database. All these API pipes being laid, they're helpful for speed in certain industries. They're helpful, for data quality, data health, et cetera. We have other metrics built on top of that. So we use APIs, of course, but we also use a lot of agentic workflows to get everything in.
Sure. And then how often, as people are changing their allocations and strategies and whatnot, do you or your customer need to kind of revisit the setup and do more sort of customization and tinkering with it?
So the way we run this expansive database is we actually have like data health going, and without going like into the IP element of what that looks like,
Sure.
we basically built an entire data health system where, to use a very simple example, if there should be a K1 for something and there's not yet, we know there's supposed to be a K1.
Right.
And it percolates and it comes up to the top of our white glove team. Sam runs our white glove team. Sam is awesome. Like he ran over $1 billion of assets tracking on a prior legacy system for a multifamily office. So like he knows everything about how this should work. So the actual way that this data health, it's actually learning based off watching real humans what should happen for the health of the data. And once it learns what should happen, it implements it into the expansive database. And as that all captures, this is what should be happening, it's flagging up to our white glove services team. Hey, the problem that exists right now is, you haven't heard about this K1 yet. You need to go chase it. You need to go find it out. But then when our white glove services guys wake up, they're not wondering what they have to do, right?
Right.
That's where like the scalability actually occurs. Is like, now they know. They wake up, they know exactly which client to deal with. They know exactly what to do.
You take the time out to check and figure out what might be missing and go through that full audit yourself. And instead it's just chasing down the few layers that you need to.
Yep. And even if the document came in, it's approve, decline, or look at a magnifying glass and see where the information came from. So there's still the human in the loop making sure everything's correct. And that's what's key is like these clients, they don't want to log in, to your point earlier, and see the data being correct. Like they need it to be right. They expect trust from their vendors. Again, that's why we're in stealth for so long building these things. We wanted to make sure everything was absolutely perfect before rolling it out, because you get one shot with a lot of these families, right? Like if you mess up, it's a big deal.
Sure.
So you want to make sure everything's perfect.
Do you ever have people, I imagine, like especially on the institutional side, that say, we'd love to have your software, but our junior team will do the white glove services part? Like you give us those alerts, we'll chase it down. You
should talk to the juniors. The juniors certainly don't want that. I mean, what's interesting is honestly, every institutional client we have or are talking to, we find there's a person there who has been using this legacy software, depending on how honest they are, if their boss is in the room.
Yeah.
2 to 5 years of like their job has just been that, but the reason they joined the firm was something else. Like they joined because they wanted to be golfing with clients and making new connections, or they joined because they really wanted to be a stock investor, right? They really thought they were good at public equities, or they really thought they had differentiated edge in venture capital fund manager selection. And instead they're just like in the software all the time. Typically we do end up superpowering that person. So we have never replaced that person, which is really interesting because a lot of time they did get hired for that reason.
Yeah.
A lot of time they actually did get hired because they were like a successful, amateur golfer or something, or they were a caddy, they understand the language and they're in the Southeast and they like actually should be getting out and winning new business and winning new flow for an RIA. But they've been stuck.
Yeah.
And so we like alleviate that. And I think it's actually a really cool element of our business is like in this future world where everyone has a financial digital key, like for our clients right now, we're enabling these individuals to honestly flourish. Like they're getting back to exactly what they want to be doing. They're out there having more fun work-wise. They're doing the elements of their job they want to work at. And it's been great. We've seen a lot of positive stories on that.
I love that. And I guess it's a pitch you don't hear enough in today's AI world, but I'm preaching it a lot internally. it's not about the ROI of being able to replace a human with some agentic layer. It's about being able to actually get more from your existing human capital and put people in the jobs that they would like to be doing, knowing that this necessary evil work is being done behind their back.
Yeah, I mean, people don't want their jobs taken. Like, that's, to say it bluntly. But people also don't want to be doing the annoying parts of their jobs. Right. And like, AI gives us an awesome opportunity as a tool, just like Excel is a tool or anything's a tool, to really enable them to be 10x performers, but to be a 10x performer in a way that they really desire. And that's, I mean, I talk about it internally too, like all the time, of like, really the cool thing about Abacus is we have an incredible team. Our team is the best team I've ever worked with. It's incredible. Yeah. And the reason why is because every single person across our team is very nichely focused on exactly what they want to be doing. They're incentivized to do it, and they're crushing it. I mean, our lead developer, Henry, for example, like our CTO, Brock, and I will be on a call and we'll casually mention, oh, we'd really love if like actually this widget had this kind of thing. And Brock will call me after, hey, that probably is like a month to do that. Like, let's pump the brakes, like don't throw a random, and then the next morning we hop on a call. Henry's like, I'd love to share my screen. Like, here it is. We're like, how did you figure that out so fast? Like, awesome. He's incredible. Like, he's so good at what he does, and that goes down the whole dev team. But it just speaks to when you put somebody like that in a role that they really want to do, they have fun. Like, everybody on our team tells me it's the most fun they've ever had, which is so cool to see. But that's what AI really enables. It's like that person to go do what they like, to help the business because of it, and then all ships kind of rise with it, which has really been incredible.
Yeah, there's also, are you familiar with Javon's paradox?
No.
Right. I was using this on a call internally the other day, but essentially, I'm going to butcher it. It's this theory that when the utilization of a resource gets cheaper, the total amount of that resource used actually increases.
Oh, so for sure.
Yeah, I think they came up with it for coal in the 1800s. You could apply it to like cars. When miles per gallon improves with cars, instead of us using less gas, we just drive cars more, and we actually end up using more gas despite that resource being more efficient. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that than people realize with AI, where instead of just we get the same work done with less people, there's just more work that we would all like to be doing. That is the more fun, interesting part. And I think within your industry, right, I'm curious if this resonates. I imagine that every RIA would tell you that there's more people that would benefit from their services than are using their services, because there's constraints on how quickly they can go out and sell those people, and how many people they can service, and what the cost is to be able to service a client. And if you make all of that easier, right, the end product might just be that RIAs grow and more people are taking advantage of sophisticated wealth management strategy because it's just easier to get it.
Well, the sophisticated element, I mean, it's just the way the world is shifting right now is really interesting when you look at this scene, because first off, this company, I mean, Abacus could not have been built a few years ago. It would have been impossible because the tech just wasn't there. It didn't exist. But it's perfect for the future, because the way that the future, like the world is moving, is like generational wealth transfer, so many family offices popping up. But not only that, like just, we have our first trillionaire, right? Like there's so much just happening over here with complexity and wealth, and in the US, the transfer happening, but also like the opening of 401ks into private equity, where like 401ks can actually invest in alternatives. You're gonna have grandma invested in Blackstone. Like it's all sorts of stuff happening at once, that the world is shifting toward this vision, but our systems, they don't track that at all. Like even on a basic system, not even talking about our white glove services or our expansive database, on a basic systems basis, like when you log on to whatever app you use to track your money, most of them don't have the ability to track that stuff. And they may have the ability to put 4 checking accounts on one page for you. They might not. That's like T-ball to us. Like we say that internally, we kind of jokingly, like we had to figure that problem out at one point, but like just to get your accounts, like your 401ks on one page, that's easy for us. It's getting into the alternatives. And as the world kind of shifts more and more toward this, you're going to have more requirements just for the software to actually do that, especially for the mass affluent scene. So what previously was maybe only available to family offices, right? Like a couple accountants that worked for them, a really sophisticated, intelligent, software that powered them.
Sure.
That's going to be required now for people worth 10, 15, 20 mil, which hasn't been required before, you know?
And now you can make it accessible to them
We can make it
in
accessible.
a totally new way.
And our technical debt is nothing. I mean, we're built today. We've been building the underlying for a while now, but our tech debt is essentially at zero. And so the speed at which we can innovate, the speed at which we can move, how AI native we're actually built. I'm always shocked, like hopping in on, our dev team calls, talking with Luke, our head of AI. Like Luke is incredible at the AI stuff. Like anybody who tells you you're an expert at AI right now, like is kind of, I'd be wary because it's like, okay, this hasn't been out that long. And people are like, we've been doing it for 25 years. Sure. Okay, great. Hopefully the venture capitalists invest in you. That's awesome. But when it comes to it, it's really a game of who's intelligent, who can understand the frameworks that go around it fast, and who can implement it the quickest. Right. And on a modern tech stack where we've got a very nimble team. We've got a really impressive team, a young and hungry team. Guys like Luke coming in, he's built so many things that have made my productivity, even personally as like a CEO, 10x, like just been so much faster just because he's able to figure out how to use these tools quickly and implement them. And that's what really powers us under the hood.
Sure. Now, how do you think about pricing for a product like this that has both the software and services element and isn't a total replacement for something that's already in the budget, but can be? I mean, there's some interesting layers.
Yeah, so we haven't actually desired to displace anyone in the market of our called peers. I don't think there are competitors because I think what we're doing with SPass is like it just doesn't exist. Nobody productizes the service right now, other than 23-year-olds in towers in New York City, like I was saying earlier. But nobody really does SPass except for us, and so there's no pure play competitors from a pricing perspective for that. However, we have seen a lot of like folks in our client network eventually just migrate right off their legacy system. And so, large legacy system for wealth tech that somebody was using out in Denver, Colorado, family office, and they had about 5,000 alternative line items. We were able to migrate them over into Abacus in 12 hours because of the way we're set up. And so there was always like, oh, migration costs and such. That story was really interesting because they were like, we don't do this anymore, but they're like, pricing wise, like we're not really sure what we'd be willing to pay. We don't know if you actually replace this or not. We were very stealth mode at the time. We're like, you know what, fine. Like we'll just set it up for you and like tell us what you'd pay. So 12 hours next morning, they showed up and they're like, this is done. We can't believe this is all done. It's all correct. Like we spent 6 months implementing this prior software and you guys were all just able to do it. So to your point, there's a complexity analysis that obviously that has to go on of like, how many public accounts do you have? How many private accounts do you have? A family office is very different than a 11.7 millionaire who owns a small business or something like that. That's a whole, it's an easier tracking.
And multi-client on the institutional side versus one specific family. Right?
Yeah, right. So we do price according to that. It's kind of like we have a whole pricing and quoting kind of team that will meet and decide what something looks like. But we've never lost a deal off price, which is something I'm very proud of. And I think the main reason we will never lose a deal off price is because it's a very old legacy industry. We're coming in with no technical debt. And so even when you layer on the costs of my ex-investment bankers and private equity professionals that work in the business, I can still be cheaper than most of the competition.
And are you going for ultimately like flat SaaS-based type of pricing? Or is there a usage component on the labor?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the whole industry prices off AUM effectively.
Yeah.
So they say you're $1 billion, we should price you at a basis point or 1.5 basis points, depending on, if they have alternatives or not. We don't like that. And that's because not all, a lot of us come from finance. Yeah. And so because a lot of us come from finance, like just because I have $1 billion, let's say, doesn't mean that I should be, charged more than when I had 500. Like maybe the exact same
$1 billion
accounts.
of AUM in my Vanguard account is not complex versus, 2 million across a bunch of alternatives is very complex.
The joke we said at MDP, when I was at Madison Dearborn Partners, the joke that we would always have among us when we were all associates together was like the difference between, $100 million deal and, $1 billion. It's just at the top, you see like dollars and millions versus dollars and billions.
Yeah.
So like the little like footnote changes ever so slightly, but like the math you're doing is the same.
Yeah.
It's still true over here with all the wealth tech tracking. And so we do flat fee. We do a flat fee. We usually like to lock in a couple of years with our clients, but that's usually because of them, not us.
Sure.
They want to make sure that we're there to service it for the long term, especially on the white glove side, to make sure that like our services team is committed to them long term. They know they don't have to hire additional headcount, or that the additional headcount can be focused on other things.
They want to lock in that price for a while.
Yeah, they want to lock in the price, which we love. We're like, that's great. It gives us nice security on what we're doing, and we honestly, to date too, like I said, stealth mode to date, we really haven't tried to make money. Like we haven't really been trying to garner revenue. It's accidentally been happening recently, which is great. Like our commercial launch was set to be January this upcoming year. An article came out April 28th about the Founders Arena, which is a really cool accelerator down in Texas, commercialization-based accelerator. they named us in an article. It got picked up by Yahoo Finance, picked up by Morningstar, a couple other services. And when that actually happened, it just caused a ton of inbound. It caused a ton of people to want our services. And so we were sort of like forced a little bit out of stealth mode by that. But I still internally call our commercial launch January 1.
Sure. Wow. And do you guys think you're going to continue bootstrapping or maybe bring in some capital?
Yeah, it's interesting. So we've been really fortunate. We haven't really had to or wanted to take in any additional capital to date. Like I said, decently deep pockets around the table, which is really nice. That allows us to have a sort of flexibility that would probably not be possible. I think we probably would pick up our head down the line later this year and maybe run a really tight process. But if we run a process for investment, it'll be short, it'll be narrow, it'll only be people that it really makes sense, I think, for our business. So somebody super strategic, somebody we get along with well. We're not just gonna take capital for capital's sake. A lot of folks have capital that they can put into the business, and so it won't be for capital's sake. The hard part about our business too is like most people are either a technology company or they're a finance company.
Right.
And like fintech tries to claim that they're like both for most fintech. It's like totally not true. Like most fintech is a technology company who can talk about finance. Yeah. We are truly a finance company and a technology company. So finding an investor that actually understands what that means, that would be sort of the key element. And if we find them, great. Today, everybody around the table understands that, which allows us to operate the way that we want to operate, which has been great.
Do you ever have your like customers and design partners inquire about getting a chunk of the business?
Yeah. It happens a lot. It's kind of the same little, answer I just gave. So, I mean, not opposed to the conversations ever. We've had a lot of
good validation though at nothing,
Yeah, it's good. Else. Yeah, exactly. But it's been interesting. I mean, even the customers don't necessarily see, if they're an institution, they don't always see the full picture of what we're doing with family offices and vice versa, as well as, the mass affluent clients of like, a lot of people's uncles or grandpas or whatever are potential clients down here. Once they realize that, I think of how broad based the Abacus actually is, then they get really excited.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about your team, which is clearly an exceptional group of people that seems to be very aligned and enjoying what they're doing. I'm curious just what advice you'd share with other founders around recruiting and team building. Because first of all, you're luring people away from some very high paid jobs to work at your company. And then it seems like everyone's having a lot of fun. So how do you find the right folks and then keep them incentivized?
It's a good question. I mean, I talked a bit about development already. One I didn't mention on the sales side, we have an incredible new hire starting in July. So
I saw this. Yeah.
Yeah. So without saying the name of the database company, one of the big like Databricks, Snowflake, et cetera, kind of folks out there, senior sales leader for financial services is actually leaving to join our business in July. He internally announced his kind of shift, but I don't think he hasn't like posted on LinkedIn or anything like that. So I'll keep it him confidential.
We'll have that in the comments later.
Yeah, there you go. But I mean, incredible validator of what we're doing, like literally comes from one of the databases.
I'll attest. It's a very big hire.
Yeah. So we're pumped. We're really excited about that. I think what I've learned, and I had the privilege of sitting in the investment seat for a bit. I mean, like I said, I was 26 when or 26 or 27 when I started to run.
BDT has a lot of family office ties to it as well. Yeah.
So I got to see a lot of these startups do things, and I was actually saying in the car with our CTO on the way up here, like, I don't agree when you read all these books with the founders, they always say, like no sales team early, right? They want you out there selling. Of course, I'll be out there selling. I'll be on all the calls. However, like I think it's like misguided information. And so I'd caution founders around what you really need is not necessarily to think about where's my dollar burn going or how much am I paying this person or things of that nature. I think what you really need is you need to identify for every single member of your team, what is the thing that actually makes them tick? Because it's not money for everybody. Like there's so many of these startups out there that they're just immediately hooked on, I gave 10 basis points, but I pitched them on $1 billion idea. And so they think they're going to get so much money down the line and I'm going to constrain them on cash nowadays. And then you find out they have 6 kids and you're like, well, hold on. Like he's got to pay for college somehow. This guy's got to pay for his kids, trade school or whatever. Not everyone
can survive on ramen noodles and
for sure
futons.
And so I think like and it might not even be financial at all. It might be they want to work remotely or they want to go into an office. Like figuring out what makes somebody tick, into our earlier conversation, like figuring out how you're going to get them to flourish. That's how you end up getting the best performers. We've been really disciplined about that. That's something that when I was at Madison Dearborn Partners, they just hammered into us. They were so good at executive compensation. They were so good at incentivizing employees, including us when I was working there, that learning from that playbook and putting it into play, like I would strongly say to any founder or any CEO, like you really need to make sure you understand exactly what makes everybody tick. Not only to keep them happy. I mean, it's just a good thing to do, to be a good person.
Yeah.
But then also like the productivity you get from people when you're actually meeting them where they want to be met,
right,
is so much higher.
So it sounds like you're almost working backwards from the who, right? Like you find someone that you do think is going to be a perfect addition to your team, and then it's what makes them tick. Can we get them into the right role with the right comp structure and so on?
Incredibly narrow scope. Like I think that too many people hire generalists and Swiss Army knives. There's some value to that. We have some generalists on this team without a doubt. But being able to define for somebody, this is your role. This is exactly what I want. These are the tangible metrics I can get out of it. It's very private equity, but people don't apply it to venture as often.
Sure.
They think like, oh, it's venture. Everybody's going to wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
Sure, that is true. That's absolutely true. But if you have the right person who's happy, they're going to want to wear the other hats. So like you don't have to actually optimize for that in the hiring process, or at least we haven't had to. We have to optimize for is there's 5 key metrics I need you to perform on in the next quarter. Like full stop, have to happen. Are you the person that can absolutely execute all 5 of those? And have I incentivized you to be happy enough that you're going to do the next 10 that I don't even ask you about? By doing that, we've created a team, I think, that would rival any team out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I've talked a lot about the wearing many hats thing and how it's a kind of a very dumb mentality for a lot of founders and startup people to take. So it sounds like you're ahead on that, ahead of the curve there. But what are your hats that you think are most important to wear and that you look good in?
So first off, I look terrible in hats. Like my wife tells me that all the time. So I don't wear hats. Like she keeps me off the hat scene. Sometimes when I'm like working out in the morning, you need the hat, you know, but, generally speaking, I like to dive into each, and our team would jokingly tell you, like, we're probably the most structured business that like they've seen at an early stage startup. Like we have a weekly meeting on Mondays. We have breakout calls with sales, ops, R&D. We end up having calls throughout the week, like stand-ups with each group, like where we're constantly checking in. It's very KPI driven. Everything's tracked. That being said, like I like to actually jump into each of the divisions. So like there's a lot of founders out there who come from the finance background who don't like to get their hands dirty on tech. I love the tech side. Like I love learning, okay, what's our front end written in? What's our back end written in? What's the database actually running on right now? Like how are we doing all that, and get a little bit nerdy about it and be able to play that hat for a little bit. And then jumping over back into my old days of white glove services and thinking about finance. That's the one area I'd say like the multiple hats, by the way, for like Sam and his team, that has to be true. Like there's a lot of hats you have to wear to be able to do that job, but those guys are uniquely positioned to do that.
Sure.
And then jumping into sales and like thinking about it constantly. So I like to jump into each and have a good sense of it all. And I think that results in most of my time being, you know, human capital management, like managing the team a lot, and then managing, I'd say like the stakeholders. Sounds cliche, but the stakeholders, like, you know, some of the folks around the table have put in more capital than others, managing our customers around the table, keeping them happy. We have really good referenceable clients where they've actually told us you can use our name.
Yeah.
That's highly, highly valuable, right? Using their name in the right spots, not overwhelming them though with introductions, things of that nature. So I've been a little bit of a, you know, kind of chameleon moving around everywhere. But I think it's really knowing everybody on the team.
That's different than what people I think about wearing many hats. That is not a conflict, what you just said. Like
I'm not coding.
To me is, but you talked about what your most important hat is really is you've got this ability to find the right person for a job, right? And then find the right metrics to measure their performance and give them really clear goals to set them up for success.
Without a doubt.
And to me, that is the core job of a founder and CEO is figuring out how to get the right people in places to solve the right problems, structure their incentives, their, you know, operating module, right, in order to get the results that you want.
And I mean, that's what people want. Like people actually want to be put in a spot where they can do well. They can have a very narrowly defined set of tasks. They can crush it at those tasks. They can feel really good about it. And they can enjoy their life, like both inside the business and outside. The joke I always say to our team internally is like, everybody in investment banking used to complain about 80 hours a week, right? 80, 90, 100 hours a week. You're working crazy hours. Nobody was actually complaining about the fact that they were, you know, on a cool M&A deal.
Yeah.
Like nobody complained about that. That was fun. At the parties on the weekend, at the family gatherings on the weekend, you're still talking about that by the grill with your father-in-law. Like you're talking about the cool deal you're on. So clearly in hour 82, when you're still talking about it, the problem is not the content. Back to the beginning of what we were saying, like the problem is the servicing of the software. The problem is hammering away numbers in Excel. Those are the problems. So it goes all the way through the fabric of the business. It's like if you put people on the thing they actually want to do, they'll talk to their father-in-law by the grill about it, right? For hours. But if you just jam them with stuff that they don't want to be doing, it's not going to work. Like you have to do the jigsaw puzzle. And I think that, to your point, that's the key, what you have to do if you're going to run a business.
Yeah. There's something we share in common here, which is both of us are founders with young kids.
Yeah.
Right. And I actually get people that ask me about this with some frequency, just what that's like, because a lot of people want to have families and they've already started businesses or vice versa. And they're really nervous about being able to do both. So first, I'll answer this, I think, for both of us and say you need to have an amazing partner.
Yeah.
If you're going to be able to do this, but how have you found the experience and what would you say to a founder in that?
Yeah. So first off, Beckett, I think my 3-year-old, he is the only person I think in the world that still, maybe not actually, but that has an abacus. Right. So like to the name Abacus for the company, like Beckett has an abacus. He's got a toy abacus. He like moves the beads. Nobody even knows what this is anymore, but like it's an older, counting like instrument.
Master Splinter in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
So like he actually has one. So that's one impact that it can have on kids. Don't know if that'll be positive or negative for him down the line, but no, I'd say it comes back to the wife. Like my wife's incredibly supportive. She's awesome. There's sort of a joke, like I'll be on calls and the door will knock. She'll come in. Obviously, we're a remote company. I'm at home. I'm on the 3rd floor, in the attic. Basically, we've carved out a section of the attic, which is sort of a funny thing to your point of like, there's kids in the 1st floor. Like, okay, go in the attic, like get away, have some quiet. But the door will get knocked on. We'll open. She walks in, hands me a coffee or something at 1 o'clock because that's when she knows the calendar is kind of fallen out of whack or it's been a little crazy. And people notice it. They like see the little hand come in and there's your coffee. But I think it comes back to that. I think like, 2 things. 1, you have to understand the why of what you're doing, and 2, your spouse, right? So Julia's been huge in that. But on the why, like I think it just comes back to being on the same page with your family, which sounds absurd even with like a 3 and a 1-year-old, but really it is true. Being on the same page with your family about like what's going on. And the way I really simply summarize that is, clearly we're supposed to be doing something. Like we're not just supposed to be doing nothing. That's like not what humans are here for. That doesn't make any sense at all. And I think that can be pretty easily defined and argued against. The world is like clearly, you don't have to look far to notice the world is like clearly messed up. Like, there's clearly problems, whether it's war or it's, we had a music director at our church a couple weeks ago get hit by a car, just like randomly. Like it's clearly just messed up. There's just things that are messed up. We have to be doing something. And probably what we should be doing is we should be fixing some of that dysfunction. Yeah. So that kind of to a lot of my comments, so that other humans can actually flourish and enjoy their life, enjoy the good things when things aren't messed up, be good people, help them like actually liberate from the messed up stuff. You're never going to get rid of all the dysfunction that exists in the world. But for us, it's like, okay, if I can provide in this team a platform for these guys to really go flourish, and if I can provide with this product a platform where a bunch of people go flourish, right? And we deal with some of that dysfunction that exists even for these largest, most affluent families out there in the world, and you would think they have perfect tracking and they still have dysfunction with it. Yeah. If we can provide for that, like we're doing something here about the messed up nature, we're sort of solving it, which seems to be like what we're supposed to be doing. And if your family is on the same page with that and you're including her in the conversation, like my wife knows everything that's going on, like she knows a ton of what's going on in the company. We go on walks after I get off work and de-stress and I tell her about it for an hour. That's huge though. It's really key. And I think that's what I'd say to founders, like just have that in line and then it's so doable. Yeah, I totally agree. I always say too that like, I think I want as a father for my kids to be proud of me too. Sure. Right. And I think, if you're wired a certain way to where you want to run a business, being underemployed and at a 9-to-5 that doesn't fulfill you in order to have an extra hour or two with your kids, right? Like, I don't know if that's a positive trade-off for your family the way you think it is. Yeah. I don't have as many hours as I would like to have with my kids and with my wife, know, but the time that I have with them, I want to be energized. I want to be, present. I want to be fulfilled with my life in a way that they see. Because my dad ran a business. He wasn't around all the time, but when he was, you were really excited to hear about what he was doing. You could tell that he felt a lot of pride in it. It's not like dad's working late because he's got some client to complain about that is driving his business, right? It's like he's choosing to do this because he's got passion for it. And that was really what I took on and why I wanted to be a founder, was the notion that, if you're going to work hard at something, do something you're proud of that, you own the results of. And I think that's a cool thing. I mean, people are attracted to excellence, right? Like, and I think our kids are the same way. Like, you want to strive for excellence. We talk about inside the business all the time that I want every employee to be excellent at what they're doing. And like that level of excellence, like people actually are attracted to that. And it goes for your kids too, of like, yeah, dad's working a little bit extra. The excellence that comes from that, as long as it's met with love, right? Like as long as it's not just excellence for the sake of excellence, or that wouldn't really be excellence, I guess. Right. But if it's some other thing that they're pushing on, then you're not going to have that relationship. But if you're truly just trying to go be excellent, and you still are loving with your kids, loving with your wife, et cetera, it's so attractive. Like people want to be a part of that. And I see it with our team. Like we have our head of AI is out on paternity leave right now, which is super cool. He just had his first son, and like he's talking about it. Now he's kind of coming back in. He's talking about it with the other employees. They're hearing about it. Somebody just posted in our Slack chat yesterday, like happy Father's Day to all the fathers at Abacus. Like it creates this really reverberating cool thing. Yeah. But it comes back to that point. It's like, you have to go for excellence. You have to actually hold yourself to a high standard. And if that means sometimes some things have to slip, or some things have to, you have to sleep a little bit less, like do it. Like that's why coffee was created. You can sleep a little bit less. You can handle it.
You can figure it out. I do think it also makes you a lot more efficient. And as a leader, it gives you a much more well-rounded perspective to go manage other people too.
Oh,
right?
Without a doubt.
I want to work for someone that understands family and has those obligations in their life, because you cut out a lot of the bullshit. Like you just don't have time for the performative work anymore. It is what is most important. That's what we're going to go work on.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Yeah. All right. So just to wrap up, we always do advice for other founders. You've been in the seat now for coming up on a year, right? And in the space for longer.
Yeah.
What would you say you've learned that is most applicable to someone else that is either starting a business or considering it?
It's going to sound very negative, and I don't mean it that way. I'll swing it back around, but don't go do it if you don't have to. Like, don't go start the business if you don't have to. This is probably contrarian to like a lot of advice in startup ecosystem. I think that doesn't mean financially. That doesn't mean like job wise, like, oh, I can't get another job, so I have to go start a business or something like that. Like what I mean by that is if this vision is so big in your head, which for Abacus it is, right? Like I felt the pain of just filling in software all the time. Felt the pain of the P&L when I was at Goldfinch. It's just an insane thing. They're so infuriating. That level of the vision is so compelling to you. It's the only thing you could work on right now. And it's the only thing you're going to be so happy. You're going to love it when you do it. And there's going to be like negatives. It's going to be a lot of negatives, obviously. And people talk about that enough. You don't need to focus too much on that, making the decision. But if the vision is so big and you're so compelled by it that you have to go solve it, and the critical and is like a lot of people have a lot of visions. Like, again, the guys on the team would tell you, like, Alex is pretty execution focused. Like, we get away from the vision a lot internally. We focus on getting stuff done a lot. And you have the team. You can build the team. You feel confident in your ability to build the team. That's I think the only time, which is going to sound absurd, that's the only time you should go build the business. Is like if the vision is actually so big and you actually think that you can put the best in the world team together to go be the best person solving that vision, go build the business. But if you think that like you're going to have a cool card that gets you into like Soho House or something, like that stuff it's not going to work. Like maybe you'll get there or something, you'll fool people for a little bit, but especially with working with family offices and then previously like running the investments for a family office, we saw so many bad deals. Like we saw so many guys raising where it's like, what are you doing? Like how do people still give you money? This is unbelievable. And it keeps coming back in my head too. If it's not, the vision is right there in front of you and you're obsessed with it, and the team is something you can build, even if you don't have it yet, you can build the entire team and they can be the best people possible to do it. Just don't go do it. You're gonna be unhappy. You're gonna be in it for the wrong reasons, to use like the Bachelorette line. Like you're gonna be in it for the totally wrong reasons. Like that's what has to be their genetic makeup wise, I think. We're really lucky. I think like our entire executive team is on that exact same wave, where like across Brock and Reese, this new hire, I'm like struggling not to say his first name, but we're all kind of on that page where it's like, this has to happen. It's a huge, massive potential category that nobody's attacking right now. And we uniquely just have the perfect team to actually go do it. Yeah. That's when you actually do it.
Yeah. The version of that I would say I've used with other people and that resonates a lot with me is just the notion of like, don't do it just for money, I guess, is a really simple way to put it. I don't know if it always the vision piece of it is one thing, but to me, it's just if you are someone who's willing to work a lot of hours and wants to make a lot of money, there are much better bets on paper. Like, we're both finance majors. If you apply the risk,
for sure,
premium on this and just the probability and model it out, like, go work in investment banking, consulting, be a lawyer, be a doctor, whatever that. And on paper, your odds of having a lot of money, are really, really good, right? It's a much more of a sure thing than being a founder. And don't look at the splashy exits of people that buy sports teams and say, well, I have to be a founder if I want that. Like, sure, that's the case. But if it's always just about, the math and saying, I want to get rich and this is a way to do it, then I don't buy into that. And when I hear the pitches from people that say just basically the TAM is large, the competitors are lacking, whatever, it's a very private equity style pitch, right? Then it's like, you're underappreciating what this grind is going to be. And if you don't have real passion around it, I think that's tough. But I also think for people that want to start a business that don't have that idea, they feel really passionate about that problem, they're obsessed with solving, I don't know that needs to be a deterrent yet. I think you can find your way a little bit. And I think there are businesses you can start that a lot of other people are already doing. Right.
Yeah, sure.
Like, if being a founder isn't always starting a tech business and going to raise venture capital and whatnot. You work at a restaurant, you realize that there's a need in your town for a specific type of restaurant that you would really love to go bring to life. That's another way to do the founder journey. Right. But I think you need to want it for reasons beyond the financial. I think you need to want to do it yourself. You need to see yourself as that type of person. You need to have the passion for what you're doing. Because it's going to be a long and difficult journey.
Yeah, the portion of that too is like the title. Like every time we looked at investing in somebody and they were just obsessed with the title, it's just the biggest red flag too. It's like my favorite line. I won't say which firm I was at, but one of the CEOs in one of the firms I was at used to say, "Being CEO and $5 is what gets me a cup of soup," and it was the best line I've ever heard. He's a great guy. One of the coolest guys I've ever worked for. But that line is so true so many days. I mean, on the other days, it's like you're having a blast because your team is great. You're talking to interesting people. You're doing interesting stuff. Like, there's so much fun as well. Yeah. But that line it rings so true so frequently that if you're just going for like a title on your LinkedIn, it's not going to work. That's not the reason to jump into it. So the money and the title can't be it. It has to be coming from somewhere else.
Yeah. You definitely have seen like the shift towards startups becoming cool, and a lot of people that just want to show founder, to your point, that want to hang out in the Soho house and talk about the different things they're involved with. It's so easy to sniff that out once you've been in there.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Yeah. Nah, that's great. Well, hey, I really appreciate you coming in. It's great to be able to chat. Anybody that is in the wealth management space, a high net worth individual, please check out Abacus. You want to drop your website here?
Yeah, abacuswt.com.
All right. And if you are an investor in the fintech world, maybe keep an eye out on what's going on, because it sounds like there might be an opportunity to get a piece of this later this year.
Maybe. We'll see. Well, thanks. I really appreciate it. It's been great.
Yeah, it's great to work with you guys.